Hello there, and we're back with our basic year training application using Google Colab and Python. And last time we talked about lists. That was what we found here, as the intervals string is a list of strings. So now we'll talk about this list here, and we see that there is something special in the way we're building this list, because we're not putting directly the elements. We are using what is called a list comprehension. So list comprehensions, they provide a way to create lists, and that we can make new lists where each element is the result of some operations applied to each member of another sequence or another iterable. So they have some examples here in the Python documentation. So we have here a variable squares, that's an empty list. Then we have a for loop for x in the range of 10. Then we will append x squared to this, and then we will have the list of squares here: 0, 1, 4, 9, 2 to the power of 2, 3 to the power of 3, 3 to the power of 2, 4 to the power of 2, 5, 6, and so on. What we note is that this overrides a variable x that still exists after the loop completes. But we could use, for example, lambda, then a map, and then a list, which would be the equivalent of this. But there is an equivalent way that it's more concise and readable, which is we have here our list, and then we will have elements that are x squared for every x in range of 10. So the list comprehension consists of brackets containing an expression followed by a for clause, then 0 or more for or if clauses. The result will be a new list resulting from evaluating the expression in the context of the for and if clauses which follow it. So here we have already something a bit more complicated. It will have tuples of x and y, and this x and y depends on what is in this for loop. So for x in this list here and for y in this list here, and if x is different than y, then we will have the result, and this would be the equivalent of having an empty list here. Then we have for x in this list with these elements, and then inside, nested in this for, we have another for y in this, and then we have an if statement, and then we are appending. So with this in one line, we replace all the code that is here. So sometimes, depending on the application and depending on how you want other people to read your code, it's better to do this way. Other times it's better to do this way. So it really depends. This is just one extra tool that we can use in Python. And note that the order of the for and if state is the same here and here. And you can read more about list comprehension and also nested list comprehensions in the Python documentation about list comprehensions. So in our example here, we had a list with strings. So just to practice, let's copy here. First, I'll just change a bit. I will not talk about intervals now, but suppose I want to have a new list and having all the letters in capital letters. So I will use S upper for S in interval string. So this S now will be first this element, then this element, then this element, and this element. So it will iterate here for S in this list, and then I will take this element and then I'll make it call a string method that will make all the letters to capital letters. So let's run this. Now when we run this, we see that this M becomes capital M, this M becomes capital M, and so on. We could also have lower, and then it will make all the letters lowercase. So now this P is lower, this M is lower. So just to exemplify how we can use these list comprehensions, we have for S in interval string. This interval string is a list with strings. So when S is this first, we will make it lower, and then we will append to this list. Then S moves to this one, it will make it lower, it will append to this list, and in the end we'll have this new list. And this is what we're doing here. We are, for P in the intervals string list, we are creating a list with intervals, and we are using these strings to create our interval. I will talk about intervals in our next tutorial.